So I was going through second edition D&D material, just kind of like researching and what have you, and I came across some PDFs books, but now they're PDFs, called Wizard Spell Compendium Volumes 1 through 4. And there are a lot of spells that were in second edition that did not make the transition over to fifth edition, and here are my favorite 15. Hey everybody, Jordan here, the PH is silent. In this video, we're going to talk about the spells from second edition that should be in fifth edition. Why? Because they're awesome. Now, I am the type of person that likes weird spells. Anybody can do fireball and do a lot of damage, and that's cool, but like the just odd ones are more fun for me. So, for example, Awaken, Clone, Magic Jar, Create Homunculus, Maze, which is really powerful, so that might not count. So these spells don't get a lot of play in Dungeons & Dragons, but when they do, it's usually for a cool story narrative process. Like you're casting Magic Jar to take over the prince's body and infiltrate into the castle, and hilarity ensues. I like spells like this. And when I think of magic in D&D, I like my magic to be versatile as opposed to just damaging. And I always think about X-Men and mutants. So you could be Cyclops, that is very powerful, and he fires an I-beam, or you could be Magneto, who is also powerful, but his mutant power is versatile. He can fly by attaching metal to himself. He can throw metal at people. He can manipulate the way your brain works using magnetic fields in later comics. In a world of Scott Summerses, be a Magneto. So going through this Wizard Spell Compendium Volumes 1 through 4, there are a lot of spells that have been merged into one. For example, Bigby's Hand was Bigby's Forcible Hand, Bigby's Stop Hand, Bigby's Grasping Hand, and now they've converted all of that into just Bigby's Hand, which you're able to then use different ways. So 5th edition has incorporated a lot of these spells, not all of them, and some of them are probably not going to be incorporated because they fall under the utility of other spells. Now, the cool thing about these books is that they incorporate a lot of spells from all of the different campaign settings. So this was taking spells from Forgotten Realms and Ravenloft and Alkadim and Planescape and Mystra and all these other different settings and putting them all in one space or in this compendium, and then you could see, oh, this was actually a rare spell for this person in the Forgotten Realms. This spell was unique to Greyhawk. So for your entertainment and mine, I went through every single one. I highlighted the ones that I really, really liked, and then I took that list and merged it down to my top favorite 15 spells that I would love to see in 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. And again, I like magic to be weird. I like it to sometimes be risky, and I like it to have more than one purpose. So here are the top 15 spells that I want to copy over from 2nd edition to 5th edition. And they're not in any strong particular order, but I will save the best spell for last. The first one here is Disarm. This is a level 1 spell that I really feel is missing from Dungeons & Dragons 5e, is that I cast this spell and the person has a chance, so it's probably some kind of a saving throw, maybe a strength saving throw, that they just drop their weapon. Not super overpowered, but like if you want to combo it with other people, I could have you drop your weapon, my partner could pick it up, and then they have 2 weapons and they attack them. This could be really tactical, really fun, and there are certain abilities in the game that prevent you from being disarmed, and those would have more meaning and sway with this spell in 5th edition. Number 14 is Bigby's Besieging Bolt. This is a level 6 spell that operates a lot like Magic Missile, but it can only be used as a siege weapon. So it automatically hits, it does a lot of damage, but you can't cast this on things that are not castles or airships. And I feel like this is a good spell to have in 5th edition for those wizards that want to help out. Like, can I conjure a bunch of spells that will do damage to then take over a castle, or I want to fire that airship out of the sky, and not just relying on fireball all the time. Number 13 is Bone Blade. Now, I am a sucker for being able to conjure a weapon out of nothing. This is why I like instant summons where you crush the gem and have like a weapon in your hand. But in this case, you're using a bone and some kind of bladed weapon to create a bone blade that will do extra damage to undead. It's magical, and it's just kind of fun. I like the idea of summoning a weapon. And I know warlocks already do this, so this might be redundant, but it's an 8th level spell that could be really cool if combined with other stuff, or if you're summoned and hand it to the fighter to do some extra damage on undead. Number 12 is the 9th level spell Army. This is an old Empire spell from Forgotten Realms. So basically this is a Netheril spell. And with this spell, you summon an army up from the ground of like stone or sand beings that will then attack and do things for you. This is a spell that I feel is lacking because the only way to really get a solid magical army is if you're a necromancer and you follow those steps of like summoning and resummoning to get a whole bunch of skeletons. This could just be a fun conjuration spell of like, let's bring an army up. It only lasts for maybe a couple hours, but again, this is something that I could siege a castle with. Or perhaps an invading army is coming into town, I can delay them with my own stone army. And who doesn't want a terracotta army? Number 11 is Claws of the Umber Hulk. This spell could be too close to Alter Self, where you can create claws to attack and things like that, but I like the idea of this. Casting this spell allows me to get a burrow speed, which is something that I don't see for wizards in 5th edition D&D. You can use these claws to burrow into the ground. After burrowing 60 feet, though, because you are a wizard, you need to make a Constitution saving throw or take a point of exhaustion. This could be interpreted better for 5th edition of I lose concentration after I dig for 60 feet or something like that. You could also use the claws as a weapon doing 2d6 damage, and as a level 6 spell, I don't think it's going to be abused that much. It's something that is utility and fun for mid to upper level wizards. Number 10 is I love this wizard. And number 10 is Drawmidge's Instant Exit. This is a level 4 spell that is somewhat similar to Dimension Door, which is why I don't think it will find its way into 5th edition D&D, but it has different uses. So Dimension Door, I can go a certain number of feet, I think 300 feet, but I like up or down, forward or whatever, you kind of know where you're going. But it's only you and one other person. This spell creates a door that you can run in with your entire party, and once you close the door, the opposite end of it opens randomly 250 yards away. So in a random direction, 250 yards, it will spit you out. This could be a fun get out of jail free card. If we're being chased by a whole horde of kobolds and we need to get out of here really fast, I cast this spell that my party runs in, we shut the doors, the kobolds are fighting to get in, and the next thing we know, we're spilled out on the surface of Faerun. Where are we? Where do we go from there? Did we just get thrown into more danger? And that's the fun. I like a risk reward. I really like this spell because of that. And there is also a 5% chance that you are expelled into the ethereal plane, and that could be a whole adventure in itself of how do we get out of the ethereal plane. Number 9 is the Larks and Emerge. This is arguably just a weird spell, but I feel like it belongs in D&D 5th edition, not so much that it is useful, but this is a level 6 spell, and casting this spell, you can take 2 animals that have one trait in common. So either they both breathe water, or their movement speed is the same, or their size is the same, and you merge them into one animal. So this is how you create owlbears. And the fact that we have owlbears, and owlbears are magically created creatures, but we don't have the spell that actually magically created them, I want this spell in 5th edition D&D just for that. Now, just because you merge these 2 animals doesn't mean the animal will listen to you. This really is a spell for your villain, perhaps, who's in his wizard tower just merging rabbits and cats into the most vicious creature you've ever seen. Number 8 is Familiar Enhancer. Now, I love having a familiar as a wizard in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, I think familiars are really fun. This spell, Familiar Enhancer, is actually 8 different spells in 2nd edition. So we have Familiar Enhancer 1, and then Familiar Enhancer 3, 2, blah, blah, blah. And you could cast it at higher levels, basically. Every time you cast this spell at a higher level, you would roll randomly to see what extra abilities your familiar would get. This might be that it can cast Detect Magic at will. This might be that it is immune to Charm. Or it might mean that it can cast Featherfall. Just interesting things that make your familiar stronger and better. Every time you cast this, you also increase the intelligence of your familiar. So your familiar is learning languages, getting stronger, and things like that. This does 2 things that I really like. 1, it makes your familiar stronger, kind of makes it a fun NPC to be part of the group because it'll develop a better personality. It might fight you in the sense of, I don't want to go in there, there's a bunch of goblins, and I don't want to be sacrificed. And secondly, it makes it so you don't want to just use your familiar as bait for it to just die haphazardly. As it works now, if my familiar dies, I just cast the 10 gold to bring it back over the course of a ritual. If we took the Find Familiar spell and allowed you to upcast it, but every time you upcast it, it increased in gold price, but would allow you to get your familiar to have extra things. If we did that, you wouldn't want to necessarily change your familiar from an owl to an octopus, because then it starts back at 0 and you've wasted all that money upcasting, enhancing your familiar. This is just a really cool thing. I think it would make familiars more interesting and useful, and because it's random, you don't really know what you're going to get. Will my cat be able to breathe underwater, or will he get the Detect Magic spell? I like randomness. And number 7 is Combine. This is a 9th level spell that does something really cool. You can take 2 different spells and combine them into one. So you can combine spells up to level 7. Now that could be a level 4 spell and a level 3 spell, or that could be a level 1 spell and a level 6 spell. The idea is that you're combining the 2. So essentially, let's say I could take Hold Person and Melf's Acid Arrow and cast it with this combined spell. The person being held would also take acid damage every round until they broke out of the hold spell. It's all up into interpretation, and that's what I like. This is a 9th level spell. By the time you can do 9th level spells, you're going to work with your dungeon master on how to exactly implement the combined spell. Much like you do with Wish. I kind of want my spell to have this effect. If I combine these 2, would it do that? If I combined Tidal Wave and Fireball, do I get a wave of fire? It's really cool. Like, the possibilities are super fun, and it reinvigorates the game at max level, thinking of all the cool stuff you could do. Number 6 is Duo Dimension. This spell rocks, and I am very surprised it is not in 5th edition D&D. With Duo Dimension, 7th level spell, you turn yourself 2-dimensional. And so it has a lot of utility. For one, if you turn sideways, the enemy can no longer see you. You are invisible because you are 2-dimensional. But people can see you with a true seeing spell and things like that. Also, when you are in 2-dimensional form, you can still cast spells, you can still talk, you can still do cool things, but you can slide through things like the crack of a door as long as it's tall enough for you to get through it. I also like this because in combat, you will take no damage, or you will be invisible if you turn sideways, but if you're facing front and somebody attacks you, you take double the damage. So if you're hit with a dagger, you will take 2d4 damage rather than 1d4 damage because your 2-dimensionalness makes you more vulnerable. That's fun. So risk reward, again, I'm able to be invisible, maybe I can hide, maybe they can't see me, but at the same time, I'm going to take double damage when I do get hit by something. Thank you for sticking with me this far. We are at the last 5, the top 5 spells missing from D&D 5th edition. Number 5 is a very interesting spell that would allow wizards to have more versatility when doing cool missions. This isn't really a combat spell, and I think that's why I like it so much. So this is called Rary's Aptitude Appropriator. You find a willing creature and you borrow, or rather you take, their proficiency in something. So a thief is proficient in thieves' tools and he's in my party, I take that ability so I can go in and do some other, I now have the proficiency bonus when I use my thieves' tools, or his thieves' tools, or her thieves' tools. You could do this with a lot of other things. The spell specifically says you can't take weapon proficiencies, but it doesn't say anything about armor. So I'm wondering if I could take the fighter's armor proficiency to then go into combat and wear this armor for a combat. This could be concentration. I am up in the air. It's a level 2 spell. This could be concentration. It could not be and maybe just last an hour. But I like the idea that I could take somebody's oh, you know Elvish? Now I know Elvish. The person I took it from doesn't know Elvish anymore because I'm borrowing it for a little bit. Or I'm borrowing their stealth skill or their animal handlings. You would still use your stats. Just because you took somebody's proficiency doesn't mean that your wisdom goes up with your animal handling skill. But isn't that cool? Like, that would be so much fun to be like, oh, you know what? Like, we have to send Mage Jordan into this castle, but he is not stealthy at all. Why don't we allow him to borrow so-and-so's stealth so he can go around and, I don't know, there's a lot of like planning about this spell, and I really like it. So number 5, Rary's Aptitude Appropriator, which is also the coolest name for a spell. Number 4 is a spell that I feel should have been in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition from the very get-go, and that is Permanency. It is a level 8 spell that creates a permanent effect with a spell. So if I want to cast Protection from Good and Evil on my Paladin, I then follow it up with Permanency, and he has that permanently on him until dispelled. So there's the fine print, is that this is a powerful spell, but you could still dispel it. And maybe this is too powerful with things like summon demons, I'm not really sure, but I like the idea of being able to cast Detect Magic on myself and then Permanency. Or if I want to cast True Seeing on myself and then Permanency, and you have that. Invisibility, greater invisibility, and then Permanency. And you keep it past the duration. The catch with this spell in 2nd edition rules is every time you cast the spell Permanency to create something permanent, you lose 1 constitution. So you have a finite amount of times to do this, and then arguably doing so will also cost you health as your constitution goes down. But I like that. If I want to allow myself to, if I want to cast Enlarge on myself as a permanent spell, I can do that at the cost of constitution problems. And then I also have the knowledge that this could get dispelled and that constitution will never come back. So it's not going to be abused, but the right player will have a lot of fun with this. So I think it should be in 5th edition. It's just a really cool spell. Number 4, Permanency. Check it out. I see you. You want to know what this number 3 spell is, and you're looking at this right now, and you're like, what could it be? Is it Mordenkainen's Lubrication? No, that is not the spell we're going to talk about right now. We're going to talk about Mordenkainen's Involuntary Wizardry. This is a level 5 spell, where you cast it on another spellcaster, and if that spellcaster fails a saving throw, a random spell from their prepared spells that they have memorized for the day is cast on themselves. So if I cast this on another wizard, that wizard, he fails the saving throw. DM looks at it, he kind of counts it up, he rolls randomly. He's like, you know what? Fireball. That wizard then instantly casts Fireball at their feet. It blows up and they take a bunch of damage. Or we roll randomly and you know what? He casts Cure Wounds and heals himself. Or we cast Protection from Good and Evil, or Tongues, or any of the spells that he has prepared. This is fun for me because you're casting a spell that forces the spellcaster to use his magic involuntarily, and that magic changes the battlefield. And it's random, and we're not really sure. So, best case scenario, you waste one of his spell slots and he takes some damage. Worst case scenario, he is enlarged and he's able to turn and do some more attacks. I would almost say that because he cast this involuntarily, concentration spells would not have concentration. So that could be a fun way to like manipulate this, is that if he does cast Enlarge on himself, he turns huge, but hitting him isn't going to make him lose concentration to then take that effect away. So there could be ice sheets, there could be wall of flames, all sorts of interesting stuff that you, as the spellcaster, have inadvertently caused him to do. The next spell I'm going to talk about is also about dueling kind of with other wizards, and I like this one because, you're forcing your opponent to use their magic, not how they prepared. A good wizard knows exactly when to cast what spell, and this prevents that. Throws in a little chaos. It's a good spell. Number 3, Mordenkainen's Involuntary Wizardry. And let's never talk about Mordenkainen's Lubrication again. Number 2 is Steel Spell, and I'm really confused why, if this has existed in previous editions, why it's not in 5th edition. I cast a spell on another spellcaster opponent. This could be a druid or arcane, maybe a cleric, who knows, but when I do so, a random spell from the memory that they have prepared for the day is lost and comes to me. And this just sounds like way too much fun. So a level 7 spell, I could get a healing word from a bard, or I could get some 9th level crazy spell from a lich. And that spell is now in my repertoire and I can use it for other things. There's a lot of possibility. You're doing something active to lower the amount of spell casting that your opponent has, and you're gaining something from it. Now, the trade is not good for you. Odds are, you're casting a level 7 spell. I mean, the odds of you getting a 1 to 6 level spell are higher than getting a 7, 8, or 9 level spell. But that's the risk reward of this, and I think it's a lot of fun. Plus, as a wizard, you could get some cool spells that you don't normally have access to. Maybe if I use this on a lich and I get the clone spell from him, I could then store that in my brain and later on write it down in my spell book and learn a new spell. It has multiple uses. I like things that are cool like that. So, Steel Spell, number 2, really awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the moment you have been waiting for, the number 1 spell from 2nd edition. Of all the 2nd edition spells, what spell belongs in 5th edition D&D the most? Before we do that, I want to say, if you are interested in any of these spells, there are links below in the doobly-doo to Wizards Compendium Volume 1, 2, 3, and 4. There's over 500 to 600 pages worth of spells and information and history, and you can easily convert those to 5th edition spells for your game. Without further ado, here we are. Drum roll, please. The number 1 spell that needs to be in 5th edition's D&D is Summon Cats. The penultimate of magic, the reason we're all here, a level 2 spell called Summon Cats. When you cast this spell, 2 cats from anywhere in a 20-mile radius, 2 of the largest cats in a 20-mile radius, are teleported to you, and they fight for the caster. Now, this could be 2 tigers, this could be 2 lions, this could be 2 house cats. It depends on where you are, and why do I like such a dumb spell? Why is this the number 1 spell? I'm not trolling you. I really do like this spell, and I think that D&D 5th edition needs more fun like this. So, specifically, if this is a spell for Dungeon Masters. If I'm a DM, and my player says, I'm going to summon 2 cats, and he's in the middle of the jungle, and he summons 2 cats, and instead of panthers like he thinks he's getting, he gets 2 house cats. Why are there house cats here? Where are there house cats here? Is there a civilization here? Is there a castle I don't know about? It provides clues for the players to their surroundings. The opposite is true too. If you're in Waterdeep and they cast this spell and 2 saber-toothed tigers pop up, why are there saber-toothed tigers in Waterdeep? Is there a zoo? What's going on? It's useful in that you're summoning things to help you fight. It's also interesting because it tells you about the surroundings that you're in. Plus, if I summon 2 saber-toothed tigers in Waterdeep and they're killed, I mean, this is just summoning them. You're literally transporting them from one place to another, and then they fight for you. At the end of fighting, they kind of just go back and do whatever they want. Or what if they die and the owners come looking for you because you summoned their cats and killed them? Really fun, really silly spell. Has a lot of story potential. If you're running a weird, kooky sandbox game and you don't really know where your story's going, these are plot points, and I love them. Thank you for watching, everyone. Thank you for silly cat summoning spell magic. What spells would you add from this list to 5th edition D&D? What did I miss? What is your favorite 2nd or 3rd edition spell that is not in Dungeons & Dragons? And 4th edition, we'll just throw it all in there. If you are interested in the spell compendiums, there are links in the doobly-doo below. Those are affiliate links, and a little bit comes my way if you are interested in supporting the channel. I have a Patreon where I do fun podcasts that you can listen to, and you're also supporting me, and that's awesome. Please like the video if you did like it, and I would love to have you subscribe. Thank you so much for those who are already subscribed. I make lore videos on the worlds of Dungeons & Dragons. I do D&D supplement reviews, and I cover older edition stuff like in this video that I think is important to the history and the world of D&D. If you would like to know more, please subscribe, check out a playlist. I would love to have you here, and I will see you all in the next video.